Hello everyone and welcome to part 4 of the Breakout game tutorial. Today we will have a look at the level editor. So how does it work? We have here a grid. We can select any color and start draw our bricks. As you can see, every time I touch a cell, the index is changing here. So by touching the cell, I'm getting the index back, and like this I can update the specific cell. So basically I have a map with all cells, and every time I touch a specific cell I'm getting the index of it, and I'm updating the specific cell in the grid map, and like this we can draw our level. So in this tutorial I will show you how we can create this grid view and how we can get back the index and update the cell. So I have here already a template, a project template. So it's very simple now. We have 3 type objects: size, point, and cell. The cell has an index value, size, position, color, and touched. Then we have also a B4X canvas and VPW and VPH variables. Here we are creating the type objects, and we also have the main form touch event that we will need to return the index of the touched cell. So let's get started. First we need to create a map. Let's call it grid map. Then we need also to create 2 variables. It will be the cell weight and cell height. We also need to create an integer. So for the touched cell, let's call it touch cell index as int, and let's set it to -1. -1 means basically that no cell was touched. Now we also need to create a variable for the columns count, for the columns amount, and for the row amount. So let's set it columns count as int to 15 and so we'll have a grid of 15 columns and 7 rows. The total amount of our cell will be basically the columns count multiplied by the rows count. So let's set also this variable. So those are all the variables we will need. Now let's initialize our grid map, and let's now create a blank grid view. So I'm adding a function blank grid, and also we need to draw the grid. We'll also use the blank grid to reset our grid, so we can call here the grid map clear function and also reset the touched index value to -1. The cell weight will be our form weight divided by our columns count. Okay, and the cell height will be 30% of the cell weight. Now we can create a loop So what we'll need to do here is just create a new cell object. Okay, dim cell as cell initialize. So the cell index will be the I value. Now we need to set the cell size. Cell weight and cell height. And now we need to set the positions of the cell, the X and the Y position. So there are two ways to do it. We could create two loops and go on the X-axis and then on the Y-axis, or we can create in a single loop. But if we are creating the X value and the Y value in a single loop, we will need to use the modular function. I will show you this in a drawing what I mean. So let's say we have 15 cells in a single row. Okay, and so on. And we also have 7 rows. So how can we now calculate in a single loop the X value? So let's first talk about only the X value and then about the Y value. So how can we calculate the X value? So we know the cell weight. Okay, we have already calculated it here, and we know the amount of cells we have in a single row. So what we can do is basically I modular columns count multiply by the cell weight. So I modular 15 will be 0, modular 15 will be 0, multiply by cell weight will be also 0. So the first X value for the first cell will be 0. Then I modular 15 will be 1, multiply by the cell weight, then we will get here the second X value. Okay, and 2, I will be 2 in the next loop. Modular 15 will be 2, multiplied by the cell weight, and we will here get the third X value, and so on. When I will get to 15, then 15 modular 15 will be again 0, and we will go back to here. So the X value will be again 0, and so on. So let's do it here in the code. So let's set the dim X position as float, I modular columns count multiplied by the cell weight. And the Y position, we can do the same. We'll need to calculate I, okay, divided by the columns count, multiply by the cell height. So we can do something like this. The Y position, let's set the Y position outside the loop. So Y position will be I divided by columns count multiplied by the cell height. But we want to get a whole number, okay? We don't want to have any decimal numbers for the I divided by the columns count, so we'll use here the floor function to get only the whole number. And now we can set the cell position to our new position, create point, X position, Y position. Then let's set the color to 0. 0 will be transparent. Let's set the touched boolean to false. And let's add the cell to our grid map. Put cell index and our cell object. So now we have added all our cells, and let's now draw our grid, our blank grid. So first let's clear the canvas. We can also use here the for each loop. Dim cell as cell, and this will be the grid map get index. So now we can set something like this. CNV draw rect. Let's create a B4X rect. We can use a function. Now we can return B4X rect by giving the cell X, cell position X, cell position Y, cell size weight, and cell size height. Then let's set the color to XOE colors transparent. And field, let's set it to false, and the stroke weight will be 2. Okay, so we can try to run the project and see what we got. This is wrong. We need to set it to white and not to transparent. Okay, let's run again the project, and with the grid, let's change the stroke weight to 1. I think it looks better. Okay, we have a grid. So now if we are touching the cells, nothing happens. So what we need to do now is to return the selected cell by returning only the index of it. So how can we do it? So let's first return the x value. Okay, we can log it by saying something like this: x divided by the cell weight. Okay, let's do something different. Let's set it as a variable. Then x index as int, and it will be x divided by the cell weight, but we want to get only a whole number, so let's do the floor. Let's use the floor function. So what am I doing here? So let's say this is index 0, this is index 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now we know our cell weight. Let's calculate our cell weight. So our cell weight, if our form weight is 814 divided by 15, then our cell weight will be 56. Okay, so this will be x0 and this will be x56. Okay, then if I'm touching somewhere here, then it will be something like x10. Okay, and as long as I'm below 56, then what I'm doing here, I'm calculating the touched x value. Okay, let's say here it will be something like x40 divided by the cell weight, and this will give me back 0.71. and because I'm using the floor function, I'm only getting the first number, and it's 0, so I'm on index 0. And if I will go somewhere here, let's say something here, then the touched value, the x value, will be more than 56, because 56 is here, and here it will be 112. Okay, because the second cell has the same weight, 56. It starts on x6, and plus the cell weight, it will be 112. So if I'm touching somewhere here, it will be something like x80. Okay, and if we calculate x80 divided by 56, let's try it, we get 1.42, and because we're using the floor function, we'll get only the first number, and this is 1, so this will be index 1, and so on. So we can log the x index value and see it in the logs. So here is index 0, index 1, 2, 8, 13, 14. Okay, and if I'm going back again, 0, 1, 14. Of course this should be 15, but we have not calculated the y index, and this is why we are getting here also 0, 1, 2. So the x value is correct. What I would recommend is to limit the x value not to be more than the columns count. So we can use something like this: minimum, the min function, columns count -1. And now we are making sure that we won't get a higher number than 14. Okay, if we will use it also in the move action, okay, where here 0 is down, 1 is up, and 2 is the move action. And now we can see that if I'm moving, the index changes. I'm holding down the left mouse button and I'm moving. And if we will now remove the min function, what can happen now is, see, if we are going here, I'm getting 14, but if I will keep moving, I'm getting 15. Okay, and this is wrong because 15 is here and not after and not here. Okay, so this is why I'm using the min function to limit the returned x index to the maximum of the columns count. Okay, we have now the x index, and now let's calculate the y index. And here we also will need to use the floor function, and we calculate the y value divided by the cell height multiply by the columns count. Okay, so if I'm here, okay, then I will get 0 from this y position until this y position, and multiplied by the columns count is again 0. But if I'm here, I will get 1, and if I multiply it by the columns count, that is 15, then I will get here 15. Okay, and now what we'll need to do is just to log x index plus y index, and this should return the correct index for each cell in our grid. Let's try it. So this is index 0, this is index 14, index 15, 16. As you can see, the index is correct until 104. And now what I can do, I can update the color of the cell, of the touched in a cell, and also change the cell touched boolean to true. And this is what I will do now. Let's make this code a little bit simpler. So first I will need to update the touched index value to the x position plus the y position. Okay, if I release the mouse button, then I will set back the touched index to -1. I can also show the touched index in the main form title instead of log it. So let's do it. Let's set the main form title to nothing here, but here I will update the cell. I will use a function for that and create here the function. And now what I will do is just return the cell from the grid map. The touched index value, cell touched will be true, and I will redraw the grid. And here I can also update the main title. Okay, let's also here in the draw function, let's put a if condition. So if cell touched, then else. So if it is touched, I will change the color. I will draw it in a different color, let's say red, and let's set the fill attribute to true. Stroke value will be 0, and just to make it look nice, I will not draw the whole cell, but the cell width and cell height minus 2 pixels. So let's see what we got now. So if I'm touching a cell, you can see that the index is updating in the main title, and I can draw here. But if I will go down, you can see that we will get an error. And why is that? We don't limit the y index like we have done it in the x index. So we can do it in 2 ways. We can set that only perform this action if the y value is lower than our grid height, and we can do something like this. If y is lower than the row count multiplied by the cell height, then update the cell, else don't do anything. Or we could also use the same function as we are using here, the minimum function, and set it only to columns count -1. But I think this is a better choice because we are not doing any calculation if the y value is lower than the grid height. So let's check it again. We are drawing our cell, and if we are going down, nothing happens. So this is how you can create a simple level editor as I've created in the Breakout game. This can be also used in a lot of apps or games. So I will include the source code B4X site. So if you like, you can go to B4X and download it from there. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye.